I thought I would share with you how I do my fold over cuff with this peekaboo part of the contrast color. I'm going to call these the peekaboo cuffs because of how I do the color here. There are lots of other tutorials out there on how to do a fold over cuff. This is a video just showing you how I prefer to do mine. I have done them on these two pairs of socks here. This one has ribbing in the short leg and into the foot, but the cuff parts, the directions for the cuff parts remain the same, whether it is a vanilla stockinette sock or a sock with ribbing. I have here some sock yarn in a contrast color and a main color. I have 9-inch Chaogu US1 2.25 millimeter needles, and I have a pair of scissors. So I'm going to start my cast on with the contrast color, and you can pick however many stitches you want to cast on. It doesn't affect how the instructions are for the peekaboo cuff, but you do want to start with your contrast color first. So I am going to do 60 stitches and cast on with an old Norwegian cast on, also known as a German twisted cast on, and you do want a stretchier cast on, otherwise when you do your fold over cuff and pick up those stitches, you just want to make sure that there's a good amount of stretch there. If you find your cast on too tight, go ahead and try half a needle or needle size up. So I'm using US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles here. So if I found my cast on too tight, I could go to a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle, or a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. I find that as long as I keep my stitches not pulled too tight and spread out on this right needle, that there is plenty of stretch when I am finished. So I'm just going to finish up the number of stitches I need to cast on here. Alright, I have cast on my stitches and I'm going to join in the round. You can use the tail or the rest of the yarn left over from your cast on to indicate your beginning of round, or you can use a stitch marker. So I'm going to slip my stitch marker on here and join in the round, being careful not to twist my stitches. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit for 16 rounds using this contrast color. Alright, so I have knit 16 rounds on this cuff. I placed a light bulb stitch marker here on that first stitch of the first round so that it was easier to show you that there are 16 rounds here. If you want, it can also be helpful for when you are going to start picking up the stitches in the folded cuff. If you place a marker on that first stitch of the first round, just to make sure that when you're doing the folded cuff, it doesn't get twisted or offset by a stitch or two. Now I'm going to cut a couple inches out for my contrast yarn, and I'm going to join in my main color. And I'm just going to kind of weave in that old color, the previous color. I'm just going to weave in a few stitches of that contrast color. It will be folded in on the inside, so you won't see it, but this is how I'm weaving it in a little bit. So I'll place that contrast yarn over my right needle before knitting with the main color, and I'll do that every other stitch. So that's probably plenty there. Alright, so now I have my 12 rounds of the main color knit in after 16 rounds of the contrast color. And now comes the fun part. I'm going to fold this fabric wrong sides together. And I want to match up the first stitch from the first round to the first stitch on the left needle. You can kind of fold it in, but it doesn't have to stay put, because as you knit around, it will start taking shape and be a little less floppy. So I'm going to knit in, put my right hand needle into the left needle as if to knit, and I'm going to pick up where I cast on. So I'll do that one more time. Stick the right hand needle into the first stitch on the left hand needle as if to knit, and then pick up that first stitch from the cast on edge. And then I will knit those two together. And then take that stitch off. And I will continue doing that all the way around. More here. So you can see that the fold is taking shape. Again, right hand needle into the first stitch on the left hand needle as if to knit, pick up the stitch from the cast on edge, and then knit both together. And you'll do that all the way around. The ends before can be tucked in to the fold, so you don't have to worry about weaving those in later. I did weave them in a little bit as I went, just to get them more secure in there, but since they are tucked into the fold, they won't be going anywhere. So I am going to knit up the rest, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished. Alright, so I have picked up from the cast on edge all of my stitches and knit them together with the live stitches. And this is the Peekaboo fold over cuff. Now, because the contrast color had 4 extra rounds knit compared to the main color, it peeks over the edge when folded. And then the inside is nice and tidy from picking up just the cast on stitch, and then the ends from changing colors are all tucked in side of that cuff. I hope this tutorial was helpful and inspires you to knit up your own fun color combinations. So it's a great way to use up little bits of yarn that you might otherwise not know what to do with, and have a fun time making different color combinations for a fun pair of socks.